Kodash, 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 Adonai, Elohim, Sabayath, meaning holy, 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 Lord of hosts. Yahweh, meaning tetragrammaton. So tetragrammaton, hosts, armies, a vessel. Today we're about to go into the book of secret wisdom, and we're going to go into another chapter, which is stanza 7. We just did 2 videos on stanza 6 the other day. And I say we because the people that subscribe to me and all the people that are listening to me, I say we as a collective whole because we're supposed to be building and growing together. So I throw we in there. But let's get right into it. Stanza 7. It's called Fiery Baptism. And I'm already 2 chapters ahead in this book of reading it. But it's some interesting stuff that comes up that, goes along the lines of current events, things out of the Bible and things that we probably already perceive to be, but we're not quite sure of yet. You get what I'm saying? Let's jump right into this. Stanza 7. The fiery baptism. Time was passing, rapidly gaining speed, and it pushed urgently forward with each new turn. So basically talking about the wheel inside the wheel in heaven as they turn it and during the new periods and cycles and eons and how new energy comes in. So that's what it means by new turns. With each new turn, time was leading earthlings on new spirals of ascent. Human hearts were already capable of peering into the future. They were already capable of peering into the future. And the future reached out to them, drawing them ever close to itself. Anxiously looking back, human beings feared the return of the past. Their hearts recognized those who were trying to ensnare them in the thoughtfulness of bygone ages. This is the part I like. 62. Solar activity. What we seeing now on the earth. Solar activity. CMEs from the sun called coronal mass ejection. But this solar activity, it talks about it in the Keys of Enoch, how the sun will leave its circumpolar when this activity with the sun starts to occur. These when certain earthly events start to occur and Mother Nature starts to wake up and unlock volcanoes and earthquakes in diverse places, as well as the human energy of them turning one against each other and basically eliminating themselves, with going hand in hand with what it says in Revelations about the 2/3 that get cut off. 62. Solar activity was starting to approach the limits of the possible. Glowing white hot from the new currents, it's the plasma energy. The sun was released from his fiery white core, a sheaf of rays, which swiftly disappeared from the view, thrusting themselves into the bowels of the earth. So bowels, like the bowels in your body, the inner parts of the earth, where people live at. The sun was knocking at the earth's heart, calling upon it to let in a sheaf of fires of the new sound. The earth opened up. Verse 63. Now the earth was being enveloped by a light hitherto unseen. She was once again renewing herself, permeating all spheres of life with the stamp of newness. Once again, earthly shapes were changing, mainly in the realm of color. Nature was attempting to heal the wounds that had been inflicted on her by humanity and to cover the gaping black holes with luxuriant blossoms, all living. So basically, people in power basically done defiled nature. That's why a lot of these events are occurring, because they basically killing the planet off. And by this solar activity, the Earth is gaining 10 times maximum the energy to reheal itself in the process in this new age. You know, because the sun is a life giver, just like it is the plants. So does it do to the plasma in your blood, based upon your energy and your veil of light. It says things refuse to clothe themselves in old, dark, gloomy colors as before. The darkness was threatening to grind everything into dust, to cover the fragments of the planet with a layer of thick black gray ash. Sounds familiar, don't it? Nuclear destruction. Fill the planet with black gray ash. Darkness. People power tripping, basically. That's what I get out of that, and a lot more too, but that's just what's currently happening. People were bearing the cross of renewal. They took on the appearance of a chain of creatures. Basically, we evolved through different dimensions, and we lived as different beings. And right now, the earth is one of our higher selves, which we're going to another higher ascent than this. It says people were bearing the cross of renewal. They took on the appearance of a chain of creatures stretched out along all the roads of the earth. Some had already walked the whole path, bearing on their shoulders the disproportionately heavy cross of repentance from human sins. Others were trying to tear their excessive weight off the toiler's shoulders and replace it with their own load. Sounds familiar, don't it? Amongst them were even those who were not searching for anybody in particular. They simply cast away their own burden, and this was immediately picked up by the darkness. Such seekers of an easy life quickly found themselves bound with coarse ropes to the darkness. Darkness owns spirits. Hence, anyone who had dropped the load of light entrusted to them now belonged to the kingdom of darkness. It's basically telling you who you are feeding more energy to and what your mind is open to. That's why I tell people all the time, be aware of your own thoughts, be aware of your own intent, be aware of your own actions. Be aware of your own ignorance. If you're just trying to shun somebody, shut them up, or not giving them the full credit or time of day to even understand them, but just so quick to push them to the side because it's not to your liking it. That's the energy that you create. And that also rubs off on people and has a cause and effect that comes with it. Just like the laws, statutes, and commandments, which are the laws of the universe of cause and effect. It says, darkness, such seekers of any easy life quickly found themselves bound with coarse ropes to the darkness, own spirits. Hence, anyone who had dropped the load of light entrusted to them now belonged to the kingdom of darkness. They themselves had made the choice, having broken off the path of ascent. So basically rising to their higher self. They wanted to stay on a low frequency, and were now sliding down along the line of descent. 65, verse 65. Those who had managed to reach the spirits of fire, fire is symbolic to spirit, with their heavy burdens were now able to drop it into the life-giving flame, which burnt away everything that had been superimposed by the darkness. So basically, it's a shift in energy, a shift in power, in overcoming and not being overtaken. And the bright fiery cross was presented to whoever was prepared to renew their commitment to the quest. They were bearing the karma of love. That's why when you go to psychics, they tell you about karmatic bonuses for some people. He said, we're bearing the karma of love. Basically, this the energy from your forefathers and that bloodline in which you live in coming back to repay you. Basically, what you some people will call the ancestor. Some people say it's angelic forces. It's all of the above because everything in God's creation serves a purpose and it's going to do what it's supposed to do at the right time. And such people had already attracted the special attention of watchful eyes of the gods and were already considered to be messengers of heaven. What are you saying now? The elect and all the people bringing out the truth because they're truth seekers. We are all turning the darkness, basically cutting the power off of the darkness to where as though it doesn't shine, it doesn't have an effect. It's just nothing but darkness. Therefore, it's not even going to exist, because the truth sets everybody free. And a person can tell a lie long enough. People can lie, but consistencies and patterns don't lie. The Most High said we will know them by their fruits, so we'll know them by their behavior and their consistencies and patterns and how they tell these lies and how they cover up truths. But the apocalypse means a great revealing, so it means that those ones, the light bearers of this time that are carrying the light, are going to reveal the light and expose the darkness to where as though that darkness can't thrive because the tactics it once used and thrived on for so long is being cut off and suppressed, and it's a big issue for it to be exposed like that on all wide fronts. So therefore that light becomes dimmer and it dies down and eventually it goes to hide because it becomes too obvious to be spotted, and these people in high and wicked places, they love to hide. They like to cover stuff up. They like to hide real good and they like to have shields. They like to do things from afar to where as though nothing leads back to them. But with this kind of truth, guess what? All lies will be exposed. It don't even matter if it's in a book. Just a person being around you and their behavior, you'll be able to know them by their fruits. And you'll be able to cut them. That's what the Most High said the elect would do at the end. So if you see these behaviors and characteristics in certain people that are so genuine, you'll automatically know who the elect is. Because guess what? Their frequencies and their currents and their rays of love is going to radiate off of them. And you're going to feel it and know it when you're in their presence. You're going to know the truth when you hear the truth. What's real you can feel, what's fake you can't relate, These are the obvious facts of this time. It's no way around it. It's no time to run or sugarcoat it and act like certain people aren't this and certain people aren't that. People give the dark side too much glory, but when good is in the world and present and presents itself, everybody try to act like it's not real or it don't exist. Some people's love is genuine and it's divine love, and they can't even help it. But they got to deal with all these burdens of other people and all the BS that comes in the world, He said, the watchful eyes of the gods, and were already considered to be messengers of heaven, ambassadors of the world of light. These are those reincarnated spirits that was already here, the matriarchs, the patriarchs, the prophets, and they are coming back. It tells you about that in Revelation, 2 witnesses. Tell you about reincarnation. People still act like it don't exist, and that's in the Bible. But it tells you more in depth in the Kabbalah Unveiled, and it tells you in the Zohar. So that's 3 references right there, So you can go look them in them yourself. But a lot of people don't want to take the time to read these things, But they're out there, and people act like you just be talking, but you got to do a lot of research. You got to really mean what you say and say what you mean when you get into these truths. You cannot be half-assed, basically, These energies and these forces of heaven, they real, they genuine. They're not going to play with you. You start playing with fire, you're going to get burnt. So you better be really mean what you say and say what you mean and walk it like you talk it, because once you get into these levels of understanding and truth, you're held accountable, because you actually did it, and therefore you can't really be deceived like other people can, because you're fully aware of why people are doing what and why certain things is happening, because you have that overall understanding. It said the heavenly host of love had intermingled among earthlings. The two had merged together and could no longer be distinguished from each other. They merged together and couldn't be distinguished from each other. It talks about that in the Zohar. It talks about when the wheat becomes back connected with the shaft. It tells you in the Kabbalah Unveiled about the inferior quant. When you go past your five senses into the untapped potential, it tells you about how the celestial and the terrestrial will basically be joining back as one. It's like a magnetic pull. One goes without the other, but for a course of time, it hasn't been connected like that. But in these last days, it's going back to how it was in the beginning. So shall it be in the end. He said the two had merged together and could no longer be distinguished from each other by outward signs. The main difference was the internal. They were bearers of love. And it also tells you in this book, bearers of light, which are bearers of love. These are people that have a genuine love beyond the regular eye's comprehension. Because a lot of people, when they come amongst these people, they don't know how to take them. They really react weird and different, or people feel they love or get a piece of their love. They start tweaking out of control and they want the worst from them because they don't want nobody else to get that love. Or it's just that love, it seems too good to be true. So a lot of people shun upon it, or they won't even deal with it at all because they know it's there. You know, they just can't comprehend it or don't want to comprehend it, because a love like that will it serves the greater good of humanity, and to the point where as though an average Joe that's not on that level of love, it'll have a crazy cause and effect on them and have them spiral out of control. If anybody know what I mean, anybody dealing with that kind of love, you should know. You know it because it's within you. With the aim of giving her away, the world no longer greeted them with the erstwhile hostility. You see how a lot of people that have that love, they get greeted with hostility or arrogance or pride or some wrongful energy that doesn't even match that love to begin with. They get the complete opposite. But with a love that strong, you think people would embrace it or genuinely, confide in it, but they do the complete opposite. They embrace it with hostility. But in this last part, it's going to be completely different, The lavish nourishment, the lofty tongues of the flame had disappeared. But not so easily to tame were the human tongues. They burnt more painfully than the sting of any incandescent heat. But the beacons were moving toward them with the tremendous burdens of heavenly love. The beacons were moving toward them with the heavy burden of heavenly love. So this is a strength, this is an energy that a lot of people can't even match. But once that they come to them, it's nothing nobody on the ground, a hater could do. It's nothing nobody with jealousy can do. That hostility that they greeted you with before is out. It can't exist no more because they're going to get conquered. They're going to get brought to a naught. They're going to have an eternal flame of damnation, which is going to be hell on earth for them. Just because they're living and they still are grafted to that energy in this period of transition. Because this period of transition is to expel the evil inclination, as the Zohar states. But a lot of people going to get caught off guard like a thief in the night, because as it's happening right before their eyes, they're not watchmen. They're like sitting ducks, Like it says, I think in the book of Isaiah, he said they're watchmen are like slumbering dogs. Basically, they're not going to bark or blow the alarm, whether they can see this stuff, but they just turn a blind eye to it. They don't acknowledge it, what time frame that they're in. So they're going to get caught off guard like a thief in the night. It's a thief in the night because you're looking in all the wrong places, because you're not even seeing how it's manifesting and coming. When The Most High does not contradict itself. Just like he said in the book of Matthew, said how we know the signs of thy second coming. You will hear of rumors of war. You will know by the signs in the sky. You'll know these things because you're watching for these things and you're more in tune to know him. That's why he said many going to come to him and say that they have known him, and he's going to turn them away and say that they have known him not, because you only looking at the parts that's beneficial to you, that could fit your narrative of what you're feeling, but not as a collective whole of how God really serves the greater good of humanity, not just for your own personal needs and desires, or what you going to just bless in Jesus' name and eat some swine or something that's against the law, statutes, and commandments. Because that's the ideology out here, man. It's blasphemy and it's a complete abomination, you know. And it's funny to me because a lot of people just joke, you know. You're like, you can't even get mad at me. Once you get on a certain level, before I wanted to fight with everybody about the truth. Now it's just like, I just look at people like, okay, to each his own. I don't care, because I know that everybody has a purpose to serve, and some people just got to do what they're gonna do. It's not our job to intervene in every problem we see just because we know the difference between right and wrong, or try to win people over and preach to them. It's not our job, you know. Everything has to run its course, and we got to just let it, you know. Because once you can see where it's going, you just got to let it be, because prophecy has to be fulfilled one way or another. A lot of times we get in the way. Certain things just have to transpire, whether they be good or bad. You just got to know why they're happening. He said, little by little, the light illumined what had once been the domain of the darkness, who puzzlingly, restlessly, and chaotic thoughts were still letting themselves be felt as blustery drafts. I know that all too well. There's a lot of that going on out here. But it's dying down. I don't get attacked as much as I used to. I don't feel as low and defenseless as I once used to, you know? I always had it in me, but I can snap out at times and wouldn't be able to hold my ground or speak my piece or get the point across that I needed to, because I was literally jumping to fight and to conclusions all the time, you know? I noticed that eternal flame goes up the more that I get deeper and deeper in this stuff. It said, one by one, they attacked the tongues of fire, releasing their venomous sting of doubt and zealous distrust of his healing life creating force. Still, the wee fire continued to glimmer gently despite the dense drops of poison falling into it. The light lived. Remember, the Most High said they would try to poison my elect, but they will not die. They'll try to poison our communities, but guess what? We have a strong DNA field to where as though it's not that easy to kill us, because we're El Cristo Negroes. We have that DNA, that God gene. You can be killed, but guess what? Certain one of us spirits are eternal, because certain ones of us can remember our past lives and come back in different carnations and pick up back where we left off, whereas though others can't really do so as much. I had to blow the whistle. That means we gotta turn the light on. It said the struggle had moved from an external to an internal plane, taking on forms more and more suitable and concealed. Many servants of the darkness went about their business, serpentiniously masked by the disguise of light. So basically, meaning a lot of these people in power, they hid, act like they were sanctified and people of God, but they were really doing great wickedness, covering stuff up. You can see that with the Vatican and all these religious institutions, politicians, all throughout the world. You know, they talk a good game, say they're gonna do this, this, and that, but they really not in control of their own actions. They basically just fulfilling and pushing an agenda that was created long ago in some secret cult or some secret New World Antichrist agenda, you know? New World Order Antichrist agenda. Anything anti-God, but say that they for God, but they really not, you know? They don't even know God, for real. Be technical. We ain't gonna give them that much credit. They don't even know God. All they know is lies, stay in power, do what works at that present moment. That's it. People is funny. He said the darkness went about their business, surreptitiously masked by the disguise of light. It was still a challenge to distinguish the false reflection from the truth. As we see today, intellectual reasoning was useless. It was the heart that possessed the highest gift of discernment. Discernment, being able to decipher. That's what discernment means. Decipher the difference between the truth and the lie. Spirit of discernment. How will you be able to do that? Because you'll be in tuned enough and have enough knowledge to watch for the consistencies and patterns. Like I always said, people lie. Consistencies and patterns don't. How can you distinguish a lie? By watching the consistency and pattern of it to tell if it's the truth. That's the spirit of discernment. Decipher, crack the code. And only it could help. 69. People began to listen ever more keenly to the heart, which was now drawing more attention than the brain. Many began to listen eagerly and attentively to the words of the beacons of the fiery world, proclaiming that the future belonged to the heart. What's happening now? You know, that heart, that love, that truth, that light. For it was pure. Yes, the heart was incapable of lying or pretense. It had no feeling of hatred, revenge, greed, and all the other ills harbored by the human mind. It knew only love, and the pulsating organ could love like none other. While the mind had been defiled with dark thoughts, the heart was utterly impervious to evil. The heart belonged to the future, while the mind was bogged down in the past. That's interesting. People hearkened to the call. The God sensed the readiness of human heart. What's happening now? To receive new currents. That's why the energy is coming down, because a lot of people are conscious and woke. So that's for the planet is waking up. The sun is literally awoke. All the elements on the planet are awoke. All the angels are standing up. You know, all the people on the ground that knows enough is standing up, because it's a new current, it's a new period, it's a new cycle that is happening. Different planetary alignment. Said the God sensed the readiness of the human hearts to receive the new current, and they set to work rotating the wheel in the new rhythm of the outpouring currents of the sacred love. So basically, this is when the wheat comes back connected to the shaft. This is when us, the terrestrial, become back connected to the celestial. This is when heaven and earth come together in this interdimensional magnetic pull takes place. This is when all of these energies start to move through the whole planet and move through you. But that's it. That is Well, this is the next stanza, but this is stanza 7, the fiery baptism out of the secret book of wisdom. I'm about to be out. Yahweh, Adonai, Shaddai, Shechaniah, Elion, Eloah, Elroy, Elohai, Agla, Tetragrammaton, Aya, Aya. All praise to the Most High and all the attributes of mercy and justice and judgment for the greater good of balance. Baruch, blessings be those who watch this in good faith for the purpose of learning and expanding their hearts, mind, and conscience for the greater good of humanity. Baruch be to them, their families, those close to them and among them. Pray that you please forgive us for our sins and negative intentions by word, thought, and deed. My Abba, who art in heaven, my supernal mother, who art in the earth, and the Ben, which is Va, who died for our sin. Hallowed be Hashem, thy kingdom.